Hey everyone, Brian Beeler and Kevin O'Brien coming to you from the Storage View Lab. And today we finally have the thing that I don't know if you've been not bugged or poked or pushed for, but on social media I've been getting hit on where's the data, where are the results from your NAS challenge.
Well, I've just been excited that this thing that smells when it's operating is finally not operating in the lab anymore.
There's a certain, what is it, je ne sais quoi that the French use to describe an indescribable feature or trait of something. And yes, the Intern system does still smell terrible. Even in our lab, which is open air, and it's been in the 90s, which makes the lab uncomfortably warm. And the warmth of the air, the dampness of the thunderstorms recently does nothing to alleviate the pain in our nasal passages from the Intern system.
No, there's some interesting problems associated with it.
So the Intern is passed on and leaves us with this residual benefit.
Yes.
And he didn't die. He got a job like all good interns should do. So he's feeding back to society now, which is great. But just to recap, what we did is we've been working with iXsystems, and they're the guys behind TrueNAS Core and Scale and all these other great products. And we went out and built 3 systems. Kevin, the intern, and I all had $800, and we said, what can we do with our $800? And we'll recap the systems here in case you didn't catch that first video. And WD stepped in and graciously provided storage. You can see the SA500s, the WD Red SSDs that they provided.
Well, yeah, because if you're looking at trying to build an $800 system with storage, you'd be some thumb drives for storage.
Yeah, you'd be Raspberry Pi and thumb drives. So we used the WD Red SSDs. We used a couple of their 10 terabyte pluses too, right?
Yeah, as well as some of their Extreme Pro USB thumb drives for boot drives.
Boot, and then a little bit of SSD. We'll get to that in a moment. But we used all these components. Kevin ran a test plan against all 3 systems, and we're here to reveal which one is best, the right word, fastest, uniquest, most unique.
Well, I mean, best, it's easy to say who won and who lost, but
well, let's not.
We don't need to point fingers.
Let's not be so sure, and don't you dare point that finger at me. How dare you disrespect my system like that? We're going to have a vote at the end of this. Part of the big reveal here in a little bit is that we've got an iXsystems TrueNAS Mini that we're going to give away. They were gracious enough to provide that. So somebody in our listener viewership audience is going to get a really great prize out of our pain and suffering, which is fantastic. And we'll get to that. Kevin, quickly recap the 3 systems that we've got.
Okay, so I went with an off-the-shelf HP microserver, tried and true. It has support for literally everything, so you don't have to worry about networking or bays or anything like that.
No creativity in your system, though, to be fair.
Well, the creativity is better positioned to other things than will the system work.
Right, but creativity, you would admit this is a low score.
Well, I mean, you could say, well, your creativity goes towards the products and use cases you'll use your NAS for, not in building your NAS.
So this is a paintbrush and the world is your canvas or some sort?
Yes.
Okay, carry on. This one.
That is the DIY, more consumer take built by our intern. And it has the fastest processor. It has...
has the most fans, I think.
Yeah, most fans, most LEDs. It also has the most graphics cards. Although, while its size is gigantic,
yes, it
only has 2 3.5-inch bays.
Okay, so that's an interesting compromise. I don't think he thought about that at the time.
No, his entire thing was... his entire budget went to the processor and motherboard and didn't really have anything left over.
But most LEDs per watt, okay? And why don't you describe my humble offering, which...
You actually went with probably one of the nicer boards. It's
creativity.
An AMD Epic platform.
Creativity, I get 10, you get 0, he gets -12 for creativity.
So it's an AMD Epic platform.
Oh, no. What are you doing?
Here, I'll put that over there. That was not your mistake.
Yeah.
It's an AMD Epic platform.
You can show it.
Yeah. It holds 6 hard drives.
Yeah.
But as you can see, this is one of the downsides that you run into when you're building a...
I was kind of hoping we could just shove all that crap in there and nobody would see it.
Yeah, so you're trying to build a system on a limited budget, and you might be able to find modular power supplies on sale. Unfortunately,
I did not, but I did get one on sale.
yeah, you didn't have enough budget for a modular power system, so there are a ton of wires, and there's a ton of wires that aren't even used.
Well, see, couldn't we just cut those, just wire snip them?
I could probably wire snip them and maybe cap off the lines with some heat shrink stuff, but you're left with a lot of excess cables that you maybe probably don't need. But you can hold 6 hard drives, and you can only connect 4.
Yeah, that's a limitation of my motherboard, but I still have the secret weapon in my system. We'll see in the results.
No, you won't.
We won't see in the results, but I did have a secret weapon. Every now and then, though, the secret weapon is like a Wile E. Coyote trap of Roadrunner. It just doesn't quite work out, and you end up falling off the side of the cliff.
Yeah, so in your case, your secret weapon was a PCI SSD, and you had
well-intentioned.
And you had an enclosure while having a lot of fans cross over for hard drives, things like that. It relies on passive cooling for the heatsink. It's pretty nice for the CPU, but you're left with a lot of thermal activity near the motherboard.
Thermal activity near the motherboard. That sounds like a rock band, thermal activity.
Yeah, so your M.2 got quite toasty in our testing. Under certain consumer activities, you'd probably be fine. Under enterprise testing, it decided to drop out. Not really a fault of the SSD
No,
itself.
it's not the SSD's fault. It's all these stupid cables, I think, contributed to my demise. I did have one other problem.
Well,
or
both,
2 problems.
So, it was 2 problems when you factor in the intern and you. Actually, okay, so there's 3 total problems.
Yes.
You guys both went with some really strange Ethernet options.
I got a 10 gig E card from eBay for like $20, and even though it showed up with the heat sinks popped off because the retention clips broke, I used a wire tie to resecure those. And you're telling me that wasn't good enough?
Well, that and like the intern's card is a full height.
I like that it's very wide.
Card.
Yeah.
Yes, I've never seen a card like this, but while it has a lot of creativity, it didn't work.
Right.
Or it would not work with TrueNAS Core.
Okay, so what'd you do on NICs then?
I pulled a 2-port MLX card from the lab that is known working. So.
And what did you use for your NIC? What'd you end up putting in here?
I had a Mellanox Connect X5, which gave me 2 ports of 100 gigs. So I took the easy approach of just needing one cable connection for mine to work.
Okay. I had one other problem with my discount selections. I also had to go to eBay China for DRAM, and twice I bought RAM. This RAM came, it fit, but it didn't work.
No, the system went out boot, so we had to pull RAM from the other lab resources.
We have the no creativity option, which is looking pretty good. We've got the RGB option, which still stinks, has only 2 hard drive bays easily or properly available to it in this configuration.
Has a full-size graphics card
for unknown reasons. A NIC that doesn't work. And mine, which is the most creative and probably the nicest looking case, this fractal case is pretty cool, is a wiring nightmare, a heat dissipation problem, several of them, and my NIC and RAM didn't work.
Although I think you have the most RAM right now because all we had was either 16 or 32 gig DIMMs, so you have a lot of RAM.
All right, great. That's of little solace because had we just run out of these 3 configurations the way they came, we would have, we wouldn't have all lost. I would have lost, the intern would have lost because our systems were trash, and then Kevin would have taken this little kid scooter all the way to the end of the line and won quite easily.
Yeah.
But you did end up getting us functional, at least, and you guys took an SSD approach. We put hard drives in mine, and so we've got some data to share, and we can look at the performance.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a look at some of the key findings here.
Okay, so initially as we look at the large block sequential workloads, you'll see that my HP microserver is clearly in the lead by a very wide margin.
Well, that's only if faster is better.
Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So in this case, both the consumer DIY platform and mine both leverage the same flash configuration.
Right. And as clarity, you gave the other platforms garbage names. The consumer DIY is the Intern system.
It's mostly consumer because it has no ECC. It's using a consumer CPU.
All right. And I have the enterprise DIY because I have an enterprise CPU, out-of-band management, and ECC DRAM. My system's starting to look pretty good again.
Yes.
Okay, but I ran 4 hard drives. You guys ran 4 SSDs, right?
Yeah, and we have your hard drives in mirror configuration. You're not going to get 2 drives full. If you're lucky, you might get 2 drives fail, but it's really just 1 drive failure. It's mostly designed just for performance over capacity, but it's a good compromise there.
So I outcapacitied you, though, is the important part.
Yes.
That's the key takeaway here.
Yes, and having 100 gig access into your NAS is pretty nice.
Okay.
Although it maxed out the SSDs.
Right. But I didn't have any SSDs. I thought I was going to have an SSD cache. My secret weapon has failed me.
Yes.
It'll turn, though, for the positive, right?
Yeah. So...
Look at that. I'm not so far in third place anymore.
Yeah, so as you look at small block sequential, this is one area where the consumer-based platform did win out. It has the fastest CPU, and that plays out in the small block sequential and other small block tests.
Okay. So if you're going to do a lot of small block work, a little bit of flash, and he's got an AMD something or other, right?
Yeah, it's an AMD Ryzen platform.
Okay. So you'll get some transactional benefit there if you've got a lot of little stuff. I don't know. I mean, most home users, at least, and even SMBs are going to be mostly writing files, though, right? Media files, things like that.
Yeah.
Although it could be anything. So this, again, is another thing of understanding your use case. So what stands out to me here, too, is the write performance on his. What do you attribute that to, given ours was a little bit more closely aligned with read performance?
His CPU is just dramatically faster, but
Yeah.
it just comes down to one's more preferential towards ECC memory and lower cost.
Right.
And his consumer, you can get a little bit more for less money, but you're not really, like, no one in their right mind is going to run ZFS on a consumer platform because you lose out on some of the integrity features.
Okay, so I got to say, though, that even here, where you're faster than me, I'm at a much higher capacity than you and using hard drives, and I'm not off by that much.
Well, I know, but sequential, you're never going to be off that far from a flash device in a lot of NAS workloads.
So would you concede that I won in this chart?
No.
All right, what else you got?
Okay, so 4K. This is where
There's clearly a typographical error in this results because mine says very little numbers.
Yes. Well, I mean, it's just hard drives would be slower than flash. If you had SSDs in yours, it would also be pretty fast. But
Yeah, if I had SSD cache, I would have had the capacity and the performance, and probably would have bested you both.
well, yeah. But you could say my platform, the Intern's platform, better be positioned for maybe light database workloads, something transactional, where yours would probably be better suited for large files, media server, that sort of thing.
All right, so Kevin says mine's an expert media server. Other than that, what else stands out to you here?
There's still some improvements there for the transfer speeds on the consumer platform. It has the best read performance. I still went out on the write performance.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would have thought that his consumer CPU would have kept the edge here too.
Yeah, it's really hard to say where the benefits are going to be on that, but it's the type of platform where I'm not sure you'd really want to trust it for a lot of these workloads. Yours and my platform are both ECC memory,
Right.
And when you start incorporating ZFS into that, a lot of this, it's data integrity. You're not going to find that without ECC memory.
We've got more in the article, so if you want to see the latency and all the other stuff, you can check that out on the website. But given what you know, this was actually a pretty good learning experience even for us. What's your key takeaway from these 3 systems?
It's really hard to build a system that offers a compact form, it has a lot of drive bays, and it's going to fit a budget for a decent NAS platform.
With the enterprise features like out-of-band management and ECC and all these other things we talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that is a big challenge. And we were working on an $800 budget. Why? Because that was just sort of an arbitrary number that we were looking at in terms of what it takes to get a decent system out there and to be able to get access to some of these features through TrueNAS. There are other choices, though. We've got another one here. Now, this little fella is the TrueNAS Mini from iXsystems. And to talk about this and some of the work that's going on over at that shop, let's bring in our good friend Morgan Littlewood from iX. Morgan, how are you?
Hi, Brian. How are you?
We're doing great. Thanks for popping in here. I mean, you guys were great to help bring this contest to fruition. You've seen the nonsense of the initial builds, the performance, and some of our successes and failures. Kevin's clearly lacks creativity, so there's that. What's your take on this experience and what you've seen out of us so far?
It's a very cool experiment, and you've really explained the challenges of building these NASs. I never thought that our products were particularly good smelling, but now that I know that that's an advantage we have, it's very good to know.
You might want to add that bullet point, like lavender infused or something, on your sales sheets.
Yeah, no, I think you've captured the sort of challenges and the trade-offs that people building a DIY system have. The HP microserver is a good little machine, and you can build a small system with you don't get necessarily all the hot swap capabilities, but it works, and it's a reliable, robust machine. What you've done with the fractal system, it's effectively what, as a designer, you'd want. You want all of the extra drives. You want the compact form factor, and you've got yourself a good motherboard with ECC. So that's exactly what you want. But you end up with a lot of cables unless you're prepared to do a lot of work yourself.
Right.
And so, that's the sort of thing we wrestle with internally ourselves. So we end up having to go and do a lot of custom engineering. I've got a big advantage, which is why I'm going to claim I won this competition, which is I've got a big engineering team behind me that can go solve these issues for me without having to me having to do all the work. So it gives us an advantage.
That is a handy advantage, to be fair.
Exactly.
And we've seen your systems before, and TrueNAS and TrueNAS Core and Scale and everything you've got going on. What's kind of the latest from the iX standpoint, and what's going on with TrueNAS these days?
Yeah, so in general, TrueNAS 12 is the software base that is now being delivered. 12.0 U4 has just come out recently, and that has been very well accepted. So it's now our most popular software base that we have out there, and so it's going very well and is very reliable. So that's what most people will build systems from, and I think in general having very good experience. We're also, as you've made clear, and I think you were one of the first people to talk about it, have also been releasing TrueNAS Scale. So TrueNAS Scale has just got into the beta phase of its life, and we've actually developed most of the technologies or capabilities to allow people to sideways migrate from TrueNAS Core to TrueNAS Scale when they think it's appropriate. And by doing that, they get the advantage of having Linux containers and Kubernetes and a few other sort of Linux bells and whistles included with their TrueNAS as well. So we're hoping that both the TrueNAS Core and the TrueNAS Scale continue to go well, and working towards making that possible. And with both the platforms you built, the DIY, and with the minis, you can effectively have the either Core or Scale run on those units. So you'll have a choice of software additions and what capabilities you specifically want.
Right. So go back to this Mini. Kevin, will you pop that door open?
So one big advantage that this guy has, if you were keeping count on the different platforms that we were building, your platform, for example, has 6 hard drive bays.
6 bays, yes.
But only 4 SATA connections.
That's less than 6.
Mm-hmm. Mine has 4 bays, 4 connections. That has...
Who knows? 2 bays and...
It has a lot of connections, but only 2 3.5-inch bays. This guy has 5 bays for hard drives, 2 bays for SSDs, in roughly the same footprint of the Fractal platform, and you're left with a system where it's designed really as a storage system than a server,
right?
And it really plays out how the thing is designed,
or a gaming case, or a little server with no hot swap access. Yeah. So Morgan, you mentioned hot swap access is something that we neglected to talk about. My build is definitely not have it. Kevin's doesn't have it, and this travesty has no anything.
Mine can have it with the right RAID card. I don't believe it has it with the...
No, but you still have to pop the front off. And
Well, the front, it has a little spring-loaded.
all right. Anyway, the Mini has a lot of those...
That's right.
Standard capabilities, right, that a small business would expect. Tell us more about the Mini and the other highlights you want to touch on.
Sure. Yeah, so as you point out, the TrueNAS Mini has this Mini X Plus has 5 3.5-inch bays and 2 of the 2.5-inch bays. Obviously, the 2.5-inch bays are used for SSDs. The 3.5-inch bays can be used for either hard drives or SSDs, so you get a choice of what combination you want of SSDs and hard drives. As you say, it's all hot swap. We're building effectively for the professional or the small businesses you indicate, and they might be running a work group and they want to be able to do make fixes, replace drives, etc., without disrupting the working of their company. So they need hot swap capabilities, and that's why we build it in. Yes, we had to custom engineer that whole chassis to make sure that we had all that storage capability, but we fit it with a standard Mini ITX motherboard with the same ECC RAM capabilities that you emphasized. The Mini X Plus has 10 gig built into the motherboard, which is nice. That operates on either 10 gig or on 1 gig. And then there's also a Mini X version, which is just for 1 gig ports if someone doesn't need the 10 gig capability. Other things that you might notice with the Mini, you don't see it until you plug it in, is the noise level. We've done a lot of work on making sure we've picked the best low noise fans, and so it's very, very quiet. We call it whisper quiet, and even though it still has to cool the CPU and all those drives, so it's another area that we tend to invest in. Then the final thing that we've done for the Minis that we can't really do for the DIY builds is we've built enclosure management into the system. And enclosure management is a graphical tool that we build into the web UI of TrueNAS. And what it does is provides the user a view of the drives and the fans and the status, cooling, etc., of the or temperature of the systems. And so you can see what the status of the system is, what drives need to be replaced, and you can verify that everything is operating as you want, remotely or locally. And so that's something which, again, the professional or small business user or enterprise user in some cases needs to be able to run their systems.
Well, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And those types of value add things are really what separates an engineered, supported solution from a less engineered and less supported solution. Kevin,
Sure.
for his part, at least gets 1 year parts and labor, I think, on your warranty.
Yeah, I can even upgrade it to on-site. So it's
On-site, right. I get nothing, he gets nothing, so...
Yeah, and I even had to build your system and his operation.
You had to help. I took all the pieces out.
Yes.
Yep.
You know, I screwed in the motherboard, I think. So anyway, yeah, I mean, it's obviously a great system. You guys have been great in terms of your support of this project, and we're giving this away. So for all of our viewers, their social audience, iX's team as well, and followers, we're going to be pushing the link out. It's in the description of this video. It'll be on our socials. So if you want to win this and take it home, it's going to be someone's. And this is not empty. This is full of, 5 hard drives?
5 10 terabyte drives.
Okay, so 50 terabytes of storage, 2 open bays, right? So you can slam some SSDs or some additional storage in there. So we're giving that away. That's from iX with their hugs and kisses. So that'll go a long way to make some business or home lab or someone's going to be extremely thrilled to have this thing. But while I have you here, Morgan, I can't let you go without asking a few questions because I know that you're one of the smartest guys over there, and while you defer to the engineers on the hardware, certainly got a couple questions that I want to pass along. You talked a little bit about scale. Blaze wants to know, I would love to know their opinion on moving from core to scale and back for those home labbers and businesses who want to try Linux rather than BSD but might not want to commit. Do you see that sort of try before you migrate kind of thing, or what's your feeling or your stance there?
Yes, you can. So we deliberately moved with TrueNAS 12 and TrueNAS Scale to the latest OpenZFS 2.0. And so both of the editions share that same file system. So they effectively can import their own, each of the other system's data. So yeah, you can move from core, effectively load Scale software and boot from Scale, but import the pools and import all the data. And then if you decided to change your mind and go back again, you can. What I do want to warn people is we're still in beta version of TrueNAS Scale. And so if you've got critical data, make sure you have a backup plan. If you don't have one, then yeah, build another system and start with data that you don't need while you're working on it and learning the ropes.
Yeah, fair enough. I've got another question. This is from Caddy666. That sounds kind of a... Was the Cadillac in that Carrie movie where it was like the devil car?
I'm not sure. I don't recall.
I can't recall either, but the name sounds ominous. Hopefully the question is not. Can a cache be used for multiple pools or split via partitions and not disk? Guessing the answer is no, but wonder why not. He goes on to say, for instance, I only have one NVMe slot, which kind of sounds like my build. When it worked, with a 512 gig SSD, I have currently got one pool of two 8 gig disks, but I want to use this until I can afford to buy more disks. Anyway, it goes on, but the question, I believe, at its essence is, if I have one drive slot with NVMe, can I do anything to spread it out?
I think it's possible. We don't do it in any of our products at this stage, but if you'd have to work at the command line to partition the drive into multiple drives or devices, and then once the TrueNAS is loaded on, it would see multiple devices, and you could assign them to different pools, for example. But it's not something we ship within our current products.
Would that be using namespaces or just physically partitioning the drive?
Either way. The key thing is to make sure that the device, as in our TrueNAS software, sees multiple devices. And so there are a variety of techniques for using that, for doing that.
Okay. Staying on the mini theme while we're here, these names are fantastic. Sinister Pieces from Reddit wants to know... Basically, this user invested in a little 9U rack during COVID to set up a home office, home setup. Is there any plan to do a rack mountable version of a Mini? I know you've got, on the iX side, a whole suite of enterprise rack mount systems that are larger scale. Any chance we could see a rack mount version of a Mini someday?
It's a good question. We do have within the TrueNAS product line an R series platform, and so within that we have a 1U system which can actually have 16 SSDs. That's called the R10, and then we have a 2U system which is 12 3.5-inch bays and 2 SSDs at the back. So they're available, but they use effectively the larger motherboards and a standard Xeon processor for the compute. The idea of building a rack-mounted version, but having a sort of mini ITX and Atom type processor is something that we're interested in, and we may go do it.
Yeah, well, this guy in particular, he goes on to say, and like a lot of, even small businesses, back when we started even Storage Review, we had servers literally in the closet that where the thermals make a big deal, the noise starts to be really important. Yep. So when those bigger systems that are rack mount whir up, it's a little bit different when the things, he says the rack is above his head, so he doesn't want a face full of fan noise. That's interesting that you're thinking about it.
Yeah, certainly the data center systems are built for a data center. Those 2U and 1U systems have dual power supplies and so dual power feeds, which you want in a data center, but you don't necessarily need in a home lab.
Right.
Yep.
This one may be a little outside your scope, but I'll throw it anyway. UQE wants to know, is Ceph clustering feature on the TrueNAS Scale roadmap at all?
It's a good question. It isn't in the current software. But what we have in the current software is the ability to run any container or Kubernetes workloads. And so it is possible to run applications in that. What we haven't done yet, but would look to do, is to make it possible for those containers or Kubernetes workloads have access to disks, and then effectively you can run anything, including Ceph if you wanted to.
Okay. So one last one for you, and then we'll let you go. Domar's got a question about certification. Now, this isn't a world that you and I live in, Kevin, but apparently there's a big push around certs and qualifications and that sort of thing. The question is more or less, iX doesn't currently provide certification. Is that something that you're looking into for the enterprise units? Is that something that your users and administrators could expect at some point in the future?
So certifications in terms of professional certifications,
right?
It's something that we've certainly thought about. We've done a lot of training videos and university that we used to run, etc. And so we can expect to continue to do that. At this stage, we haven't got any plans to have a true certification process. We would like it to make it available for anyone to get involved in TrueNAS and make it straightforward for them to get the information they need.
Okay. All right. Well, Morgan, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thanks again to iX for supporting the giveaway here. So again, that link for registration is in the video description. Kevin, final thoughts on anything you see here?
Try and buy, if you're building a server, try and find something that doesn't require a graphics card, and probably focus on something that has a lot of cooling and minimal cables.
See, this is just Kevin going back to his server's the best and creativity doesn't count. But you guys will get to vote. So as part of the contest, we're going to have a Twitter poll. We'll link to that too. And we'll have a vote of our followers, and we'll see who they back. If they back you with your thoughtless industrial design, or mine with my creativity, or Ben the interns with his oddly smelling power supply.
Could I say if you vote for mine and win, I'll include some SSDs in this?
No, you cannot. That's not happening, not true. You don't get anything bonus if you vote for Kevin's. But until next time, thanks for tuning in. Goodbye.